Welcome to the Reading for Wellbeing podcast. I'm your host, Professor Pozzulo. Today I'm talking with Dr. Kari Leibowitz, author of How to Winter, Harness Your Mindset to Thrive on Cold, Dark, or Difficult Days. Welcome, Dr. Leibowitz. Great to talk with you today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Before we start talking about how to winter, can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to write a book on how to winter?
Sure. So I'm a psychologist by training. My PhD is in social psychology from Stanford University, where I worked in the Stanford Mind and Body Lab with Dr. Aaliyah Crum, studying mindsets and their effects on our health and well-being. But actually, before I did my PhD, I spent a year living in the Arctic of Norway. So I lived in a city called Tromsø that's over 250 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. And it's so far north there that they have 2 months of what they call the polar night. So this is the time when the sun sets on November 21st and then doesn't rise again until January 21st. And there I was working with Dr. Jor Vitterso at the University of Tromsø. And he studies life satisfaction, happiness, well-being, meaning in life. And I thought it was really interesting that this sort of world-leading expert on human happiness lives in this city where the sun doesn't rise for 2 months. And so that was really the start of my interest in understanding how to help people thrive in the winter. And then over my time at Stanford, really learning about the power of mindset, what mindsets are, how they work, and how we can harness them. I realized that there were a lot of people, maybe the people listening to this podcast right now out there, who really struggle with the winter, really struggle when the days get colder and darker, and that our mindset is a really untapped resource for finding more joy and comfort and coziness during the dark times of year, and actually the dark times of our lives that can happen, in any season. And so the sort of seeds of this book became planted when I really felt like, there was a message that I could share that might help people in the winter, and in so doing, give them a better understanding of how to use their own mindsets in any time of challenge or difficulty.
Great. I loved your book.
Thank you.
So much great science and strategies. But before we start digging into the science and strategies, can we talk a little bit about mindset and what is mindset? What is a winter mindset, and how do you get it?
Yeah, sure. So, we all have mindsets about lots of things, whether or not we're aware of them. Professor Aaliyah Crum of the Stanford Mind and Body Lab defines mindsets as core assumptions about things in the world and how they work. So, you might be familiar with research on growth and fixed mindsets of intelligence, work from Dr. Carol Dweck, right, about whether our intelligence is something that is fixed and set about us, like our height or our eye color, or something that we can grow and improve with time and effort. And we all have these mindsets, whether we're aware of them or not. And we have them about lots of things. So about our intelligence, but also, there's research on stress mindsets. Do we think stress is helpful or harmful for our health and performance? Mindsets about our bodies. Are our bodies capable, or when we get sick, are our bodies to blame for that? And mindsets about winter. So is winter a time of year that is wonderful and full of opportunity and with many things to enjoy? Or is winter a time of year that is dreadful and limiting, and a time of year that is naturally going to make us feel depressed? And what I really like about studying mindsets is that they hold a lot of room for nuance. The truth is that all of these things are complex, and all of these things are both, right? Winter can be delightful and magical and cozy, and it can be gloomy and dreary and depressing. Really, winter is objectively dark and cold, but how we interpret this darkness and this cold, whether we see that as cozy or whether we see it as gloomy, depends in part on our mindset. And our mindsets are really powerful because we can recognize these paradoxes, these nuances, and still choose to adopt a certain mindset. So we can say, yes, I know that winter has many unpleasantries and many things that I don't enjoy, but I'm really going to work on cultivating a positive wintertime mindset or an adaptive wintertime mindset that focuses on the opportunities of the season because I know that's going to make me feel better at this time of year.
Great. And can you talk a little bit about so if we want to adopt or adapt our mindset to more positive views of looking at winter, can you talk a little bit about some strategies that we can use to get there?
Sure. So first, just, start by acknowledging that you have this mindset. So I grew up at the Jersey Shore in the US. I'm from Asbury Park, home of Bruce Springsteen. And so I grew up a total summer lover, winter hater. And I really thought that this idea that winter is depressing was not a mindset, but was a fact. And I was sort of, inundated with all these messages about seasonal affective disorder and winter depression. And I really sort of thought that it was just a truism that the winter is inherently depressing. But then I moved to northern Norway, where the winter is very long and cold and dark. And I met all these people there who talked about all the things they looked forward to about the winter, or all the things that they enjoyed about the winter, or all the things that they thought were special about the winter. And I realized that the winter doesn't have to be inherently depressing, and that really it's possible to have a different mindset about the season. So first things first is just notice that you have this mindset. And then you can start trying to deliberately focus your attention on what there is to enjoy about the winter, right? So, when it's a snowy day, it's equally true that you're going to have to shovel your driveway or clear off your car's windshield before driving to work, as it is that the world is soft and sparkly and beautiful, and that the snow brightens up the landscape and opens up all sorts of opportunities for winter recreation. But whichever things you pay more attention to and focus on when it starts snowing or when you wake up in the morning on a snowy day, that's going to influence your whole experience of that weather. And so if you start by consciously shifting your attention and saying, oh, look how beautiful it is, or, oh, it makes it so cozy to be inside, drinking my coffee this morning, or, oh, I'm going to go and take my dog out to play in the snow after work today, or my kids out to play in the snow. You start to have a different experience of it. You're still going to have to shovel your driveway. You're still going to have to clean off your windshield. But now your attention is focused on all of these possibilities of winter. And of course, when you're attending to these things, then your motivation comes online. Well, maybe you're more motivated to go play in the snow or to have a cozy morning, and that's going to change your emotions and your experience of that snowy day. So start by consciously trying to pay attention to the things you like about the winter and the things that feel good on a snowy day, or even in the darkness, right? Eating dinner by candlelight, having a cozy movie night. What things feel better in the darkness? How can you really pay attention to them?
Great. Some great strategies. You talk a little bit about, dark days, not so much, the light outside, but just our emotional experience and having maybe negative emotion or not positive emotion. What strategies would you recommend if we're trying to sort of lift our mood, especially during winter?
Yeah. Well, so I think there's a couple of things to do here. One is to first just accept that negative emotions are part of life, right? So sometimes I think we resist them so strongly that we immediately feel that they are something to fix, that creates a new problem, right? We're not just feeling down, but we're stressed and upset that we're feeling down. And this is really a corollary to, I think, how a lot of us feel in the winter, where we feel more tired in the winter, which is a very normal, natural thing to feel when the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer. But when we push against that tiredness and when we fight that tiredness, we don't have room to respond to it adaptively. And instead, we can accept this is my season where I feel more tired and try to find ways to work with that tiredness, to rest more, to find some rejuvenation, to find some slowness. So we can start by accepting, okay, right now I feel down. Later I'll feel better. And then we can say, what do I need when I feel down, right? Instead of berating ourselves and saying, what's wrong with us? Let's snap out of it, right? We can say, what is this feeling down a sign that we need more of, right? So sometimes in the winter, we feel down because we haven't been moving our body enough, right? Our energy is really low. So maybe we either find some ways that feel restful and restorative to move. We do some stretching or some yoga, or we go on a gentle walk, or we take it as a sign that we need to get back into our normal exercise routine and move our bodies more. Sometimes we feel down because we've been isolated, right? We've been staying home. We don't feel like going out as much. We don't feel like meeting up with friends. So maybe we just invite one friend over to watch a movie, or we have a movie night with our kids to have a little bit of connection. So I think that, these down feelings can be a signal that maybe something is missing, right? And maybe that thing is rest or connection or movement, but we can start paying attention to what are these feelings telling us. And I think that winter can really be this opportunity to get more in tune with ourselves and our needs, and to go from being mad at ourselves when we feel tired at this time of year, or feeling like that is some personal failure, to saying, okay, let me practice meeting myself where I'm at and trying to respond in a way that is a healthy way of coping, that is adaptive in terms of identifying a need and then trying to meet that need.
Yeah, I love that idea, sort of meeting yourself where you are, and then, you know, accepting it, and also looking at ways that you might want to, um, maybe feel a little better or lift your mood. And I love the suggestion, if you're feeling kind of lonely, isolated because it's too cold to go out, inviting a friend over to watch a movie or to share a cup of coffee is a great strategy.
Absolutely. And I'm really curious because, you read the book. Like, is there anything that stuck out to you that you either have tried or that you want to try that you feel like will lift you on the winter days when you're feeling down?
Yeah. I think I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I love winter. And so I kind of can't wait for the winter to set in. And I'm all about, the hot chocolate and, reading a good book and really taking advantage of indoor time,
Yeah,
and
okay.
not feeling like, oh, it's such a beautiful day out there. Like I really need to get out there. And it's just about, I really I really liked the activities, that you suggested in your book, because I do those activities.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I think for me personally, it was just a confirmation that, keep doing what I'm doing, and it's okay to love winter. It's
Totally.
so I'm in Canada. It is cold here more often than not, and we certainly do get a lot of snow usually. So it's great to be able to take advantage of snow days, or even just looking out your window and watching sort of the snow build up on trees, can be really just quieting and restorative. So I was a convert from the start,
Mhm.
so but I loved it. Um, all of it,
Yeah,
and I thought it was really practical. The other thing that I really enjoyed about your book is, the strategies or the ideas in the book, anybody can incorporate those. It's not about changing your lifestyle completely. It's really just about incorporating a few different things to make you feel better. So, I thought that was great.
thanks. Yeah, and what I've seen is exactly what you're saying, is that people who enjoy and embrace the winter it's the time of year that they get to do these things. They don't say, oh, I'm inside reading or being, inside because I have to. They really say, this is the time of year that I get to be indoors or slow down or read my books. And I think that reframe is really important, that even if there are things that we love to do, I love to be outside swimming and biking and picnicking, but rather than thinking of winter as the time of year that I can't do those things, I think of it as the time of year that I get to do the things that I put aside when I'm busy being outdoors, when, the weather is warm and sunny. And so I think really having those things to look forward to is key.
Hmm. Do you, what surprises you about this research or about this area? I know you. I think you went into it with a particular mindset, and then I think you got some surprises along the way. So, what surprises you about this work?
Well, the whole mindset work in general, it really surprises me how powerful it is and how overlooked it is. So, my mentor at Stanford, who I keep talking about, Dr. Aaliyah Crum, says that, the total effect of anything on us and our health and well-being is a combination of sort of the objective properties of that thing and our mindset or our reaction to it. And I think we know that the cold affects us. We know that the dark affects us. We know that the winter affects us, and that is real. But I think we think that it stops there, right? That because it affects us, then that's it. There's really nothing we can do. But the truth is that our interpretation of the meaning of these things and how they affect us is so powerful. And I really see this in the conversation around seasonal affective disorder, because I think, in our attempts to help the small number of people who do suffer from this disorder, which is it's a subset of clinical depression. So first you have to meet the threshold for clinical depression, and then you can be diagnosed with seasonal affective disorder or winter depression. In our efforts to help people, we've warned so many people about the possible negative effects of winter that we've created this narrative that the winter is depressing. And so what I also see is anytime anyone feels bad from November to March, they seem to blame the winter. Anytime they're having a bad day or feeling cranky or feeling down or low energy, they're like, it's because winter is depressing. But sometimes you feel crappy in the summer too, But I think we have this narrative and it becomes so self-fulfilling. It practically creates our reality, that we have this narrative and this mindset that winter is depressing. And so then when we notice when we feel down in the winter, and then we say, oh yeah, winter is depressing, that confirms it. And then we're more likely to notice when we feel down, and on and on. But you can kick off a different spiral where you say, winter is a cozy season. Winter is a restful season. Winter is a restorative, magical season. And then, like you do, Joanna, you start noticing all the opportunities for coziness and all the ways you can revel in feeling good when you're indoors. And then you make the winter cozier, and then that becomes your reality. And so, it's actually a really sophisticated psychological process where these mindsets we have, they shape what we notice in the world, and then that shapes our motivation for how we behave, and then that behavior influences our health and our well-being and our experience. But it feels like magic to have this, I have this mindset that winter is wonderful, and all of a sudden my whole season is transformed. And so I think really for me, unpacking this mechanism and seeing how it works and seeing that it's not magic, but it is so powerful has been, a really impactful surprise for me as I got sort of deeper into the mindset research world, and then applying it to winter, talking to so many in, who've read my book or who come to my workshops or take my classes, hearing people really be able to totally change their experience of winter and have a different relationship with half of the year is it's really amazing when you see it play out in someone's actual life.
Mhm. I am just conscious of time, so I'll just ask you, what are the three main messages you would want our audience to take away from your book?
Absolutely. So one is, I would say, find the opportunities in winter. What is better in winter? What's better in the cold, in the dark, in the rain, and the snow? And whether for you that's indoor or outdoor, finding those opportunities and seeing it as a time of year that you get to do those things, I think is really key. So that's really the whole thing. If you do that, you've done all of it. But you asked for three, so I'll pick two more. So, one I think is embrace winter as a time to rest and slow down. If we look at the natural world, almost every other thing on earth, plant or animal, is slowing down in winter. And yet we have this belief that we should have the same energy and productivity and motivation year round. And that's just not natural. And it's not how life works. There's actually going to be other times when we're sick or grieving or postpartum or burnt out that we're going to be forced to have a season of slowness. And I think practice embracing winter as a time where we cultivate different kinds of rest intentionally, whether that's changing how we exercise or socialize or literally sleeping more, really leaning into winter as a time of rest, I think helps people when they do feel more tired in the winter, which is very natural. And then the last thing I will say is find a way to get outside in all weather. And this is something I see in people all over the world, in dark winters, cold winters, wet winters, windy winters. People who really feel good in the season find ways to bundle up and get outside in all weather. You've probably heard this if you're in Canada, but in Norway, they say there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing. And, we know that movement, fresh air, and connection with nature are all natural antidepressants. So when you're feeling down, even if it's just drinking your morning coffee outside or going for a 15-minute walk, as the sun sets at the end of the day or before bed, finding a way to get outside in the winter is going to make you feel good. And it's also going to open up a bunch of other possibilities because you have to get outside to do things, to socialize and to get to work and to go to the movies and to go to a museum. And so the more you do it, the more you'll see that it's possible to get outside even on a cold, dark, rainy day, and then you'll be able to do more and feel better in the winter. So find the opportunities in the season, embrace rest, and get outside in all weather. If you do those three things, I can guarantee it, you're going to have a better winter this year than you've ever had before.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And I had never thought about sort of just the naturalness of slowing down, and everybody there's a period of slowdown. I never thought of that. But you're
Totally.
right.
And once you point it out, it's so obvious, but it's so not a message in our culture that it's normal to slow down at this time of year. And once I started really embracing that, my relationship with winter really changed.
And I have to ask, what are you reading these days? Are you reading any particular books that you'd want to share?
Yeah. So I mostly read fiction because I read to relax, and nonfiction activates my work brain and my work self. So I just finished Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. She wrote Babel and Yellowface. And actually, for any other academics out there, like the protagonists are two PhD students who journey to the underworld. And she's a PhD student. And so it's a great thing for academics to read because I think it has some really funny commentaries on the world of academia. And so I really enjoyed that book. And if you like fantasy, I highly recommend it. And then right now I'm also reading, I just finished that one and I just started A New Me by Helen Oyeyemi, which is a really interesting, kind of weird, surrealist book that I'm also enjoying and would recommend. But you can find me on Goodreads, where I post all the books. I'm a big reader, so this question I could talk about for 25 minutes alone.
Thank you so much. Great books for us to check out, especially during the winter when we may have a little bit more time to read. The book is How to Winter, Harness Your Mindset to Thrive on Cold, Dark, or Difficult Days by Dr. Kari Leibowitz. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.